Hi guys. I guess we can say welcome back. It's been a while since we've been on, especially given the conference and everything like that. So I'm just excited to be back. I'm excited to pick up where we left off, if you will. Um, we've obviously the conference went well. To God be all the glory. But we wanted to come back with a topic today that um, a lot of people tiptoe around. They're getting better with discussing now. But we want to kind of still dive deep into the topic. Now, I met this young lady on the Daughters of, no, our prayer group, Queen Esther Sisters. There we go. Queen Esther Sisters. And we pray monthly, which, by the way, be looking out for the next one. We pray next Monday. I believe it was pray next Monday. So be looking out for that flyer. But we met her. I met her then, and she was discussing um, about the mental then and how important it is to have balance and things of that nature, and to, at times if you need to get a therapist, to do so. And I said, I have to have you on. And I reached out to her, and she happily agreed. And we've been conversing since then. And I'm just so excited to have her. She is a licensed family and marriage, I believe, family and marriage counselor. It's on the flyer though. You all know, okay? So don't even do that to me. But yes. So hi Tab. Hi Tabby. Hi Naomi. Hi Naomi. So she's obviously more than capable and qualified to come to us and talk to us tonight. And it's just gonna be you know how we are. We're just gonna be very free. Now, if you have questions or something you would like for us or her to touch on, put it in the comments. Like, comment, and share. Okay? Isn't that what everyone says when they get online? Like, comment, and share. Make sure that you're pushing this out there, because the more people that are aware, the more help they will get. And I really do believe that this is God. I believe in Him ordering my steps, and I believe that He's allowed her to be with us because this is something He wants us to address. So be sure to share it. Be sure to like it. Be sure to comment. Be sure to tag someone in the comments. Whatever you feel necessary or led to do, make sure you do that. But without further ado, I'm going to bring on the one and only Miss Tiphanie Hunter. I want to call her doctor so bad, but I'm not going to do that. Hi. Oh, you have to unmute yourself too.
Of course.
It's okay.
Hi. See, this is why you should not call me doctor. Keep me
Why?
humble. Because I'm not a doctor, first and foremost.
This fits. I don't know.
It's okay. I mean, pseudo doctor, fine. But
Right. So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
absolutely. So, hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Hunter. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. Uh, I hold my license in the state of California. My family and I recently relocated to Georgia. So, immediately after grad school, I worked for a nonprofit organization where I had the privilege of working with families who were in different stages as far as child. How would you call it in different states? I know they have like different names, but I'll just go with child welfare services. So oftentimes we have families who were either in the midst of reunification, or sometimes children who might be in the process of being removed, or even those who were in family maintenance. So really trying to stabilize the home and make sure that, children and parents together could stay together. So implementing therapy, implementing life coaching skills, as well as, partnering with the social worker so that everyone is on their P's and Q's and keeping a pulse on the situation so that no one falls through the cracks.
That's actually amazing to hear, because that's one of the reasons I wanted to be a social worker.
Okay.
But that was one of the reasons why I did it, because the placement and
Mhm.
getting kind of lost in the shuffle, or
For sure.
not being able to pull a child out if they need to be pulled, or whatever whatever the case may be. And I was, me being who I am, the child will most likely end with me, and I know that I can't do that. So it just wouldn't fit. But that's amazing to know that that's in place, and that people actually do that.
Yes.
People actually do that. So that's amazing, actually. I'm happy to hear that they have that implemented. I'm trying to get this footage together, y'all. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Okay, so let's go. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, did you have anything you want to touch on first?
No, we'll just go where you lead.
Ah, okay. So, okay. How have you seen the benefit of recognizing mental health um, in families? Like, how have you noticed, or have you noticed a change, or what is um, in your experience, what have you noticed the benefits, I guess, of that, if that makes sense?
Sure, absolutely. So, in my work, especially when a child is being brought in for therapy, oftentimes the child is labeled as the problem or whoever that person is. If you're doing more like, whether it be couples therapy or like there's a strained relationship between parent and child, people have an idea of who they think the problem is. And so, what I love about narrative therapy, so that particular theory, I should say, in therapy, is we tease apart the individual as well as the identified problem. So, instead of you, TK, are the problem, it's no, TK is struggling with, say, defiance. So, defiance would be the problem. So once you're able to differentiate between a person and their identity and the problem that maybe they're struggling with, sometimes we're able to see more compassion, more understanding. And instead of fighting the person, because even in the Bible it tells us we wrestle not against flesh and blood, you need to attack whatever that root is, whatever that problem is. So while it might be manifesting in that person, there's always a possibility for you to differentiate. So I would say that that has definitely brought a lot of hope in giving parents hope by saying, when they are refusing to go to bed, instead of you getting into a power struggle with them, let's say it's electronics. One of my directors had a really good idea. She said, don't fight with them over, the phone or whatever the electronic device is. Just take the power cord. Eventually, that device is going to die. It's going to run out of charge. It will die. You have the power cord, so therefore you don't have to be like physically trying to wrestle with them back and forth over it. So I would say giving hope to parents in a sense of you're not alone. If you're dealing with children, teenagers, whatever age, like defiance, not necessarily always meeting eye to eye, that is normal. So instead of looking at it as, oh, I can't wait until the stage is over, or I'm just a complete failure as a parent, giving them the hope and the restoration of, it's very possible that, yes, it is a stage and yes, it is very difficult, but please don't isolate yourself. Come and get help. Talk to other people. We work better in community. So, and I also find that parents will realize there is something that I could be doing that is triggering my child to engage in behaviors that I don't want them to engage in. So it's a cause and effect. So you have to figure out like where is that loop and where can I break it? So then families have an opportunity to see, oh, we are contributing to how this relationship is going. So I can't put it all on my child, or child, you can't put it all on the parent. What am I doing personally that's contributing to these outcomes that maybe we don't want to see? So changing the system instead of just take this one part out of the system and fix it and everything will be fine.
That 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 is absolutely amazing to hear, and it reminds me of working. I tell you, I work in the school system,
Mhm.
and personally, and I share often, and I have no problem with addressing this or stating this. I have more problematic children in the class that I'm in than, well, now new ones are coming in, so we're kind of increasing all over. But the
Mhm.
children in my classroom are labeled as bad, or they have attitude problems, or they always have a bad attitude, or they're rude, or they're disrespectful, and things of that nature. But
Mhm.
granted, some of these children, as you stated, right, there's something we have to first separate the child from that label, because that's
Right.
what it is. I didn't, I deal
Mhm.
with the label. So separating that child from that label, and then recognizing why, like what is it, what's the cause, what's causing these people or these children to act this way, and then figuring out, okay, hey, do we do this because we feel this way, or do we figure out a way to assess? And if you ask children who are, especially in the school system now, they've become more restorative. I think all over, really, because I hear a lot of children say, well, if you have a problem, what can you do? Deep breathing, you know, um, I forgot what they call it, but you breathe, and when you count, use your fingers, or different things of that nature. You walk away,
Mhm.
whatever. So they're becoming more restorative, and they know how to do it. It's just putting that implementing that into action.
Exactly.
But I and honestly, they it sucks because a lot of children won't get the help that they need until they're labeled as a child they can't get regular help, like a help just
Exactly.
with the teacher or whatever, which
Right.
ultimately I feel is a taboo in itself. Speaking of, doing away with taboos and breaking those taboos,
Right.
why wait till it gets so bad? Why not? You
Right.
see something off. I had a child who was doing better, then all of a sudden she just shifted. And I'm like, she wasn't necessarily naughty or just like misbehaving. She was just off. She wasn't focused. She was um often, excuse me, deterred, or easily deterred, or easily,
Mm.
all of these things. And I'm like, I told mom, I said, it's not a behavior necessarily. I said, it's something off. I don't know
Right.
what's wrong. And she said, you know what? It is coming upon the date where her father passed away.
Mm.
I said, well, there you have it. That
Right.
affects them, and they're still little children. They don't know. They're not little. They're 9 and 10, but they still don't know how to verbally express these emotions or these feelings
Right.
from what has happened to them. And she lost him 3 years ago, but it still affects her,
Right.
right? So,
Absolutely.
and I told her, I said, I wouldn't be opposed to getting her someone to talk to. She's like, well, I
Mhm.
don't want her to use that as an excuse. And I said, and I'm with you with that. But however, because children can manipulate the system, they know,
Yeah.
they're little wise little people. But
Mhm.
we can't ignore the fact of how it affects them, you know.
Exactly.
So I definitely agree with that, and differentiating the issue now between the issue and the child. Now I have something that I have this in my pocket, and I was just like, I can't wait to ask this, because it's just like one of those things that just irks me, but it's
Mhm.
like I understand at the same time, but yet it irks me. It irks me about 5% more than not, than the other side. So knowing or recognizing that a child, a teen, a young adult, well, a child, right? Because they grow up, obviously, but a
Mhm.
child has a mental issue, whether whatever that looks like. First of all, okay, wait. Let's break down what a mental issue or what a mental problem looks like. What would that be categorized as?
So there are so many. You have mood disorders, you have disorders that are triggered by trauma, so like anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression. There are pervasive development disorders, so that would be like your autism spectrum. There are personality disorders, like borderline personality. There are so many. It's almost to the point where you think it, you can find it somewhere in the DSM. And the signs and symptoms are so different. I think that sometimes people have this idea of, for example, if you're dealing with someone who has schizophrenia, that every person diagnosed with schizophrenia is going to look the same, and they do not. Just like every person who suffers with an anxiety disorder or with clinical depression, they don't all look the same. They might suffer from different signs and symptoms, and it manifests differently. So it really just depends person to person. What I used to love the most about my previous employer is they would ask us take the DSM with you. If you have ideas of what you think a diagnosis might look like for a person, print it out or take the actual book with you and go over it with the client, go over it with the caregiver, if they're a minor, and see, like, do you see yourself in this, as opposed to, I think I know what it is, I'm just going to slap you with this label and we're going to keep it pushing, because we have to have a diagnosis as far as your insurance is concerned. So if you're dealing with someone, a mental health professional, and you're doing therapy, not coaching, just know that you are going to have a diagnosis. They have to provide a diagnosis in order for the insurance to cover the treatment. So yeah, be very careful about that though. Don't just make the assumption of, well, I think I know what it is. So, I'm the one with the degree, so I'm just going to go ahead and, do this. But also, when it comes to these issues, like, assessment as soon as possible is very necessary, I believe. Um, I'll just use the medical example for, unfortunately, those who either have suffered with cancer or they know someone that has. How devastating is it when someone goes in and they get a bad report and it's stage 4? And the question is, if I would have known sooner, if I would have gotten screened sooner, is there a possibility that maybe I wouldn't be at stage 4? So same thing, with mental health challenges. Now, with the pervasive development disorders, so those who might be diagnosed with autism, whether it is mild, moderate, or severe, getting them assessed as soon as possible so that they can get the services that they need. So whatever functional impairment that they might have to deal with through life, it's not just oh, well, we don't know what's wrong with them. We just know they're not normal. And we kind of just like discard them and shove them to the side as though they can't live a fruitful life.
That's good. Thank you. Don't you guys love? Okay, first of all, I didn't even get a chance to say. Tell me who's watching. I haven't made it public yet, the post, because yeah. But make sure you share this, okay? Isn't she amazing? Put it in the comments. I know she is. Let her hear it. Okay, that was absolutely amazing information. Okay, now my question, and I did that because the Lord told me to. He told me back track. But nevertheless, that's informative. Now, with this, with the knowledge of this that you just given, how detrimental can it be, or what are the? I don't even want to start it off that way. How negatively, or what are the causes of us as family not recognizing the severity of a child or a young adult or young teen mental issue? How severe is it once, if, say, for instance, they may have been started off and medicated, but they didn't like the effects, right? You hear often families say, I don't like the fact that it makes my child, seem like a zombie. I don't like that. I want my child to seem like themselves, right? Whatever that looks like for them. And so they take them off, but then the child gets progressively worse when it comes to behavior, attitude, things of that nature, and they just blow it off and say, oh, it's just that they, we know they suffer from that, or it's just this, or so
to that I would say, parents, I know that you want your child to be as, I hate to use this term, but for lack of a better word, you want them to be as normal as possible. Like, maybe there's shame around the fact that your child is medicated. There's shame around the fact that your child behaves in such a way that they have to be medicated and they need these special services, regardless of their age. There can be shame, even, a person being diagnosed with something in adulthood. Their parents might feel like, oh God, like, what did I do wrong? But instead of looking at it from a stance of, well, I don't know what this is, but I just feel like they should just be normal, so they should just knock it off, and I shouldn't have to get them additional services. Treat it like you would any other profession that you don't understand. You go and you get a professional's opinion. You have, like, those of us who don't work on cars. Okay, your check engine light comes on. You're not getting under the hood and tinkering with it, not knowing what you're doing, are you? So treat mental health issues the same way. If you don't know, you simply don't know. And that is so fine. That is okay. It is okay. God has placed different people in your life to give you like channels and resources to information. So if you don't know, there's someone who does. And maybe it's not for you to understand it all, but you could be someone that has a powerful testimony that touches someone else to say, you know what, I didn't understand it. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. There were times that I thought they were just faking or making it up for attention. But no, my child actually does suffer with this condition, or they're going to live with this. So instead of trying to pass it off and oh they'll be fine, okay, just pray about it. No, my child has a therapist, or my child is enrolled in a independent living skills program because they're going to need additional help past what I can give them, and that is okay.
That's good. And it's good to hear. And she's a professional. This is her profession. So I don't want us to gravitate to, oh, it's just her opinion. This is her profession. This is something that she's actually certified to do, right?
Mhm.
And it's not an easy pill to swallow, but it is a necessary one.
Mhm.
Now, children, and people in general, they say, why would they just, we see so many killings and all of these things in the world, and parents, unfortunately murdering their children, or children, unfortunately going and murdering each other or other people killing people. And a lot of it, obviously, we know is spiritual.
Yes.
We do know that. We recognize that. And then there are some that are mentally unstable. And it's never easy to recognize that is in a family member. And it is like coddling them,
Mm,
but not at the same time disowning them.
exactly.
It seems like in the church we do one of the opposite. It's
We
either from
do.
one extreme or the next. We haven't yet found that medium,
Right.
right? And so I'm just encouraging those that are watching, those that will be watching, moving or after, to just look at the signs, right? And now you were saying a DSM, correct? DSM?
Yes.
Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So it's a manual that has so many different diagnoses. So from personality disorders to mood disorders to, like those that are influenced by trauma, even disorders that are influenced by drugs. It's an entire manual. So it's pretty much like, the Bible of psychology.
Mm, I love psychology. It's good to do. Okay. So now, is this something that you have to be certified to obtain, or is this something that anyone can have?
Anyone can have this. You could go on Amazon and purchase it today if you want to.
Okay. And it has a list of every disorder there is
Right.
with the
Mhm.
definition of
With
them.
definitions, signs, and symptoms. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And it's called
And
what again?
it's called the DSM. So, pardon me, because I've been using abbreviations for it all this time. Let me not misquote myself.
Okay.
So, I am actually Googling it right now. No, if you don't know, you don't know. Just say that. Sometimes you can use an abbreviation for so long, and then you're like,
Mhm.
wait, what exactly does that
Right.
mean?
Right.
So, let's see here.
While she's doing that, share who's watching. Let us know who's watching.
So it is called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, or DSM for short. And as of right now, there are 5 editions out, and they have worked really hard. The writers have worked very hard to try to make the terms, easier to understand. Like I would prefer to have taken like the 5th edition when I'm working with a client and I was diagnosing, or we're working towards updating a diagnosis for them, because it was easier for them to understand, as opposed to just bringing a manual that has like a bunch of big words that they don't quite understand. And I'm trying to explain it to them, as opposed to, oh, it says here, one of your signs of depression, for example, would be you have a loss of interest in things that you used to be very interested in.
Mm.
Or you're restless, so you're having trouble sleeping, feeling on edge, for example, like with anxiety. So instead of saying hypervigilance, it's like, oh well, that's my way of telling you, like maybe you feel like you always have to have your head on a swivel. You're constantly looking for a threat or or an impact that might never come, but what if it does?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that the writers were trying to be intentional about forming, the signs and the symptoms and the definitions of different diagnoses in a way that a client could understand and know what it is. Like, okay, my therapist said that based on the signs and symptoms that I'm showing, this diagnosis fits best for me, as opposed to, oh, they said I have like Asperger's or something and I have no idea what that means, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Now, that's very informative. I love this cousin. I work every day with people that have injustice. Wow, cousin, I didn't know that. That's my cousin Fifi from Chicago. So I'm
Okay.
glad she's able to join us. Hi, Fifi. But I didn't know that. Wow. So you know what DSM manual is or the book is. I'm sure. Now, how do you? Now you are a woman of faith. You are a believer. You believe in Jesus Christ. You're saved.
Yes.
Okay. This is not my words. These are yours.
Right.
Like I don't want people like you said she was saved. She didn't say it. She said right.
Yes. Saved, sanctified, Holy
Listen,
Ghost filled,
huh? Don't,
fire and water baptized. Okay.
huh? Don't play with it. Okay. So now this is where it gets sticky. And I
Yes.
say that because
Mhm.
how do we know God can heal, period. There is no stipulation on his healing.
Right.
Diagnosed, undiagnosed, whatever. He can heal whatever he wanted to, right? He healed the child who father says I don't know what's going on with her. He healed her, right?
Right.
So or how do you go about recognizing if it's, say for instance, it's a family who is of faith, right? How do
Mhm.
you go about recognizing or helping them to sort through the issue of diagnosing and um, recognizing the spirituality of things as well? Like, oh well, they say this is a demon and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, there very well could be, and I believe that, right? But
Mhm.
how do you help those people?
I would say there's nothing wrong, of course, with believing in Jesus. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Because clearly I believe in him. I believe that he is able to do things that I cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
However, I see that there is nothing wrong with you going and you sitting with someone who can help you detangle the mess of the life that you have made. So, if you're like you're saying, as far as behaviors, like, why am I doing these things? Like, what need is this meeting? So, in order to sit with someone who is, licensed, they're a professional, they know what they're doing. You can even ask for a Christian therapist. So, if you're saying my coping skill is praying, they're not going to, well, what does that do? They're going to understand that. So yeah, keep praying for your child. Keep laying hands on them as well. And you can also get them a therapist who is going to help them realize, when I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling lonely, maybe I am turning to overeating or maybe I am gambling or whatever that vice is. So say, okay, and what does this behavior accomplish for you that you don't think Jesus can? So if you are having to isolate to do whatever that behavior is, okay, you're not going to get free. You're not going to get delivered if you're not talking about these things. So maybe the therapist is the practice for them to be able to then open up to the parents and say, this is why I am doing these things. Like when I feel lonely, now I'm in the chat rooms or I'm on the dating apps and things like this because I just don't want to be lonely. And parents might say, oh, how can you be lonely? You've got us. It's like, well, if the need for them is I want to have an intimate connection with someone that's not my parent, well, then of course they're not going to turn to the parents for that. But instead of them going down like, a rabbit hole of being addicted to maybe the newness of relationships, and now they're getting involved with people who are abusive, people who are neglectful, people who are dysfunctional, being able to turn around and say, okay, mom and dad, like I'm starting to feel lonely. So maybe it's a matter of, okay, well, do we need to like set up more play dates or whatever? Or if you're older, do we need to be very intentional about your schedule? Do you need to be involved in more extracurricular activities? Do we need to be more involved as far as how you're connecting with other youth in the church setting? Things of that nature. So it's not we're throwing Jesus away, it's we're finding practical tools so that once we leave the altar, we're not leaving with this mindset of, okay, well, everything is done and I don't have to do anything else to continue to walk out my freedom and my deliverance as far as my mental health is concerned.
That was very well said. It's not that we're leaving Jesus, it's that we're finding ways to deal with what we're dealing with once we leave the altar. That's good. In addition to now praying, studying,
Mm-hmm.
fasting. Some
Right.
things only come out by fasting and praying. Okay.
Exactly.
She's not saying in opposed to, she's
Mm,
saying in addition to. I
right.
have to be very, very, very intentional about clearing the gray areas because
Yeah.
if we leave those gray areas gray, then that leaves room for confusion, that leaves room for misunderstanding, and that's not. And all that getting, the Bible says, get an understanding. And so I want these seasoned saints, because I have seasoned saints who watch, I have saints who are
Yeah.
are not. I have a diverse audience, and I want to make sure that we're very clear. So
Absolutely.
she's not saying in opposition to, she's saying in addition to, because I remember my mother, we would always be at church and we would always be doing this, but they also, they were like, they recognized certain things, or we would make sure we did things as a family, or, we always had something to
Right.
balance us out. So thank you. Okay. All right. Any questions? I have a few people on. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to make my post public because I was running around today. Not
That's
today,
all
I was
right.
running around moments prior to this. But I really do appreciate what I've heard thus far. I'm really hoping that the people that need to hear this does. Okay, now I have a question.
Sure.
What about, or how do you sort through when your parent has a mental illness and you're either now
Mm.
you're either in the house still, like a child or a young teen, or well, let's unpack the minor aspect of it first.
Minor
What is that?
aspect.
The minor aspect. What does that look like for a minor to be in the care of someone who has a mental illness, whether they're not getting the help?
Right.
Not getting the help, because obviously if they're getting the help, they also have their therapist, I'm sure, is also giving them tools to help sort through. But if you have something for them too, but definitely the ones who are not getting the help.
So you're asking, how do I sort through it, or can I paint a picture of what that looks like?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no
how
problem.
how would the child what would the child do being stuck in that? I don't want to say minor, I'll say like minor, I would say preteen or teenager.
Routine.
How would they
Okay.
navigate through being in the household or having a parent who needs help, right, and suffer at the hand of whatever that those
Right.
side effects are? What would help them? How can we help them?
What would help them is for them to have a safe and a supportive space where they can tell someone, because that child is not responsible for that parent's mental health, and they're not responsible for what that parent is or is not doing. So I definitely want to encourage adults. If somebody in your family or somebody in your friend group, they're struggling and they have children, and you're noticing differences in how maybe the child appears. Maybe, they're typically groomed very well, hygiene is very good, but then you're noticing that starting to go down. Or you go over there and you're noticing that maybe there's not a lot of food in the house, or just things look to be out of order. Like, take the parent aside and have a conversation with them. Like, do you need something, do you, as far as resources, do you need some help as far as getting groceries, or just whatever you can do to have that conversation. Be very transparent, be compassionate, of course, but don't just scoot that stuff under the rug, because what you're seeing is just a fraction of what that child is dealing with. So I would put the responsibility back onto the adults in that person's village, because The last thing that we need is another parentified child who feels like they have to be responsible for taking care of the adult and keeping whatever chaos is going on in the house under wraps so that they don't get removed or that there's no shame or condemnation of their parent. That's very heavy for a child to have to carry, and then they are expected to go and perform well in school. That's a lot of stress that they don't need to carry.
Yeah. Very, very well said. Very well said. Okay. And now, what about, and I smirk when I say this because um, it, what about the children who are adults now and their parents just don't want to admit that they have a problem, right? They don't live with them. They don't want, they're unstable,
Yeah.
obvious. But every once in a while, if they come around children or family or whatever, they're displaying these signs of
Mhm.
mental illness. What could they do?
So, can not in the sense of like beating them over the head with it,
Mhm.
but continue to have conversations with them about, hey, if you need someone to talk to, outside of me, of course, and outside of family, someone who is trained in this area, who you can talk to, who's going to be non-judgmental. They're going to be as objective as possible. Like that's very possible. If you need me to sit down with you and find a therapist, like I'm willing to do that with you. If you want to go and get counseling from, say, your pastor because you trust him or her more, okay, pastor or first lady, whatever. Let's do that.
Mhm.
If you need to spend more time like with your friends because you're feeling isolated, let's do that. What is it going to take? Now, if they are refusing treatment, you cannot force them unless they are a grave danger to themselves or others, where they would possibly be involuntarily hospitalized. If they're not there, it really has to be on their own accord because I don't believe that therapy is. I don't think it's as effective if the client is coming in, but they're not being honest about what it is that they need to address and what they want to change.
Mhm.
And also when it comes to, the person who is suffering mental illness, coming to family functions, they're coming to your house, whatever is going on, set healthy boundaries. So if you know that, for example, we'll just use the example of say like drugs or alcohol. If
Mhm.
you know that this person is struggling with an addiction, you can let them know, hey, if you're coming to my house, I have a clean house, so there's not going to be any alcohol here. You cannot come here high. You cannot interact with me and the family, especially if you have children, like while you're under the influence, because that's not safe.
Mhm.
And you might not mean the harm that you might cause, but that doesn't mean that harm isn't still there.
Right.
So if you are under the influence of anything, sorry, you're going to have to sit this social event out. And if you come through anyway, I'm going to come outside and I'm going to tell you, hey, it looks like you've been drinking, or I can tell that you're not yourself. You're under the influence of something. So do you need me to call you an Uber? You need me to call you Lyft? Do you want me to drive you home? Because like we're not doing this today. And actually stick with those boundaries.
That was a key word that I was hoping. I figured it would come out eventually. Boundaries, and
Mhm.
that's something that we're, especially as a Black community, are just now becoming aware of, but also learning how to navigate with and through.
Yes,
Right?
I believe that.
Yeah, and it's not just, and I know, you all can say, well, how do you know, as a Black, I mean, based upon my experience, what I see with other people,
Yes,
scientists and doctors, they get their information from what they see, from the information they seek out to get. So
right.
that's what I mean by that, right? But creating and setting that boundary, it's not always easy,
No,
right? Right.
no.
Okay. And now, obviously, as you said, you painted a perfect picture of how necessary they can be, or they are, right? And I often tell my best friends or my mentees, I tell them, protect your peace, right? Like if you know
Mhm.
someone's coming and they're always negative or they always have a complaint, they always have something to say, protect your peace, create that boundary to say, you know what, I'm not gonna accept that from you. I'm not
Right.
gonna come I'll listen to you when you're coming in a way where it's not just um not even aggressive, but in a way where you're blaming
Right.
someone instead of trying to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that we don't put boundaries and peace together, but
Right.
that's one of the reasons why they're in place, correct?
Right. They absolutely do need to be in place, not only so you can maintain your peace, but ideally maintain peace in those relationships.
Mm.
Instead, I've had to learn that it's very easy for us to focus on the negative.
Mm-hmm.
So boundaries would be, I'm saying no, 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 no to all of these things. And it's like, okay, but what are you going to say yes to? Boundaries are more than just telling people what they can't do. Tell them what they can do. Tell them where the access is. Okay. Um, for example, it could be, um, I know Thanksgiving is super far off, but we'll just use Thanksgiving as an example.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so if you're not comfortable hosting, set a boundary and say, I'm not comfortable hosting this year, but I am more than willing to bring X amount of dishes to your house. Instead of, I really don't want to host, but I don't want to hurt my family's feelings. So I'm not going to tell them that I don't want to host, but it's all over your face on Thanksgiving Day. And so you didn't really enjoy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And even if your relatives don't say anything, somebody's going to pick up on the fact that this really isn't a welcoming space. So now you have taken the joy out of Thanksgiving for not only yourself, but potentially your relatives. So that's a memory they're going to have. And if your goal was, let me make you as uncomfortable as possible so you never ask me to host again, it's like, well, you could have just said, I don't feel comfortable hosting this year.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, yeah, y'all can come through begrudgingly. We say God loves a cheerful giver. And a lot of times we only think of money. It's like, no, that could be your time. That could be your talents. That could be your space.
Teach, mother. Teach. You can
I
give
mean,
time.
because it's not, we can't pretend that we don't recognize when somebody does something, but they didn't really want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, unless you're just somebody that's like, oh, I don't care, at least I got my needs met,
Right.
you can feel that and you're thinking, well, yeah, you cooked the mac and cheese like I asked you to, but I could tell you didn't really want to do it. So now I'm feeling like, maybe I shouldn't have asked you. So now you're eating the meal, but you're not really enjoying it
Right.
because you can feel that in the air. That tension is thick.
Wow.
And that's why boundaries are so important. So that hopefully there won't be, like that blowout at the family function or the blowout between the friends because like you said, you guys are always inviting this negative friend, to the functions and we're tired of it. And finally there's an explosion because someone is like, oh, I've just had enough.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of setting the boundary of, you know what, if so-and-so is going, I can set a boundary and say, I'm not going to that function today. I can protect my peace that way. I can remove myself from the equation instead of having to grin and bear it.
Right. Right. Wow. That confirms so much. You guys might know it's not always a bad. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But okay, that makes perfect sense. Now, I'm gonna if hi Broby. Hi. That's my brother-in-law, my best friend's son. I mean, best friend's son, best friend husband, and my I obviously took him in as a brother.
Yes.
He's in Indiana, so time wise, I do have a service today, but
Yeah,
I don't want to keep you. So yeah, you do.
I was like, well, I mean, maybe she's not going, but I saw you dressed up. I'm like, so she going on with Jesus. Okay. I do want to go.
Listen, they're like, how you gonna be live and not show up at the church? Don't you worry. My priorities are set. Hallelujah.
I'm still coming.
I'm still coming and praising him, huh? But I also want to be conscious of your time as well. He said her son. Sorry, bro. But so I will make this my last question. Now, truthfully, this is something we could unpack. Now, okay, wait, before I even ask this last question, what month is this? Because you put me on to this. What is this month? What is the month of May?
May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So when TK asked me to do this, she had said, I've been wanting to do this so much sooner than this. And I was like, sis, this is going to work out really well. May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yep. I was like, what? She was like, yeah. She was like, see, so God does what he's done. I said, you better encourage me because I had no idea.
Delay is not denial. Ha.
Huh? Come on. Yes. God lives in the delays, honey.
Yes, he does.
Oh my God. So this is actually really, 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 really timely. And so I'm excited. I'm grateful. Now, depending on the response I get, because honestly, I already talked. Tiffany and I have already talked, so I'm like, I may need you for a few more times, to unpack certain things, bring some friends or something. But
Sure.
today we wanted to do a general scope. But me being who I am, I like to unpack things. I like to take the Band-Aid off. Like,
Perfect. So do therapists, especially this one.
Yes. We're doing a big push on my job this month for this. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great.
Normalize it. Yeah.
That's my best friend, Chantel. She said it is. That is your son sometimes. Huh? I'm not touching that. I'm just, hi, sissy. She said her job as well. So that's the thing. Now, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's confirming. But there are so many things that we can, oh my God, unpack. But I'm going to be in Tiffany's ear. She's going to be in mine. So we'll see what comes of all of this unpacking.
For sure.
What schedules align and look like. But nevertheless, the last question. Lord, did I lose it? This is why I have to either. They be like, why you don't write anything down? It just feels unauthentic. But okay. So how do you? Okay, thank you, Lord. How would you go? Now I know it's hard because I've had to do this, right? How would you go about being a young adult coming into adulthood, right? Creating or setting that boundary with a parent or that boundary with a family member, a guardian, or whatever, or just family that is older than you are. Oh, you just little this, you just little that. How do you go about creating that? Because they're like, I changed your diaper. You know how we do.
Right.
I changed your diaper. How you gonna tell me what you will and will not allow? You're not gonna. How do you go about navigating through that as a young adult and still trying to love your family, accept them, respect them, but still have a boundary?
Yeah, that's definitely going to take practice. Knowing your audience. So if you have a parent who is more likely to say, I'm going to just let you do you. So if I get to be a bit too involved or I'm too enmeshed with you, let me know and I will back off. Then cool. You can say to them, okay, hey, whatever. You can even have code words. Like maybe it's, okay, too much. So it could be as simple as that instead of having to launch into, once again, you're not respecting my boundaries and I am an adult every time that they cross the line,
Yeah.
Now, if you have a parent that might be a bit more, I feel like sometimes it's coming from a place of offense. They're offended. Oh my gosh, I helped raise you. Why would you say that I'm doing too much? I'm just trying to help you. I'm just trying to share wisdom. And it's like, well, there's a difference between dropping gems and dropping bombs. Like maybe you intended to share value, but the way you're delivering it feels more like you're taking a grenade, tossing it in my kitchen and saying, well, you said you wanted to renovate in here, so let's get the demo ready. No, don't do that. So if you know that that's how they perceive constructive criticism, like being very careful with them, like maybe it's choosing a day when nothing's going on. So it's not that you have any issues. Maybe you're sitting down, having lunch, coffee, what have you, and saying, I want to have this conversation with you because I know you care about me. You have my best interest at heart. However, I do want to be taking more steps that are independent of maybe your choices and your influence of me. So maybe it's developing a code word with them too, whatever that is. It might even get to a point where you guys are sending each other emojis. Like when you're at your limit, there's a specific emoji where they know exactly what that means. Instead of having to sit through and sift through these long novel books of text messages or emails or sitting on the phone for hours because there's a disconnect. but it's definitely going to take that practice. And you know your parents better than anybody else does. Your caregivers, your guardian, whoever that person is, you know what they can handle and what they cannot. And if it seems like it's hard for you to get your point across, maybe it is writing a letter or writing an email so you can get it all out.
Mm-hmm.
If you know that they struggle with the in person and maybe they're interjecting or interrupting because they're getting triggered.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in therapy, that use the therapy space. Like, I'm not saying make it all about the parent child relationship every session, but therapists are open to you bringing someone that you're trying to work through something with into that space, because it's supposed to be a safe space where you can practice those skills that you're trying to learn. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's fine too. Maybe find another mediator, someone else that they trust, you both respect. So if they're sitting there like, hey, whoa, did you hear what she said? Did you hear what he said?
Mm-hmm.
Let's pause for a second. Okay, it's getting a little bit too heated. It's time to table this and we can do this another day. But definitely the practice and do what you say you're going to do. If your parents were the type that did what they said they were going to do, you have to do the same when you're setting those boundaries. So if it's too much and you don't say anything, silence is often seen as consent. So
Can you say that last part again?
silence is often seen as consent. So it's like, well, she
Yep.
over there with her lips poked out, but she ain't told me nothing, so it must be all right.
Wow.
And it's not easy. It's easier on paper than it is in action, but
Mm.
it's so worth it. It's so worth it. If you can establish those boundaries and people know how to move with you and you know how to move with them. We all know at least one person who's very direct with us, where we don't have to question what they're thinking or what their intentions are or what they need from us. Wouldn't it be so refreshing if we could be the same way with love and compassion and grace too? So people never have to question. I wonder what Tiffany's thinking, or I wonder what TK is going to do when I ask her, can she do ABC for me? They'll just know because you're going to tell them. They don't have to be a mind reader, and neither do you.
Okay. I had to do the Sherman.
Hercules, Hercules.
Right. Wow. That wow. Perfectly said. Very well understood. This is why. Yep. You guys, I'm excited. This is great. You're great. This is so informative. It is my prayer. I feel like the saints. I pray something was said tonight to encourage you and to uplift you and to help.
Yes.
Wow. But that was, I mean, wow. Wow. Last question.
Sure.
What I thought I said the last question was the last question, but what are the positivities or what positive stories have you seen coming from um people setting boundaries overall, therapy overall, and then you can give your wrap up.
Sure. So let me think of a good one here. Because there are so many. And we thank God for that.
Okay.
I would say, I'll just keep it personal. So last summer I released my first book, Be Kind to Yourself First. It's available on Amazon. And my mother read the book in one day because she didn't want to put it down. And then afterwards, she sent me a text with feedback about the book. And she said, this is so important, especially around setting boundaries with the family. My mother is the oldest of six. And she was saying, as a child, and especially, in the Black community and in the Christian community, oftentimes, children, they were to be seen and not heard. So the idea of boundaries or the idea of checking in with children to see how they're doing emotionally, that didn't really happen. And so she was saying, it would be great sometimes if as parents we weren't always looking to God to see what is God going to do. It's like, no, what are you going to do as
Mhm.
far as your relationship with your children? And so getting so much positive feedback from her and saying this is necessary in the schools, people need to read this book. And not just young people, but older folks too. It just really blessed me because sometimes in families, if someone does go into the field of psychology and they do become a therapist, I think the assumption is that, oh, they're the know-it-all who's going to try to diagnose everybody in the family. Everyone in the family is toxic except for them because, they have their degree and they know everything. And so to get that positive feedback from her, from my book, as I shared, personal testimonies, um, and just different concepts that I've learned, it was very impactful. So seeing that the older generation, they are open to these concepts, even if it's not all of them, just all they need is a few.
Mhm.
So I would say that has been one of the most positive things that I have seen come from my life in this field. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I am extremely elated that you were even able to share with us, come on, um, with your little one and your schedule and your husband's schedule. So I'm so appreciative to him. Please extend my appreciation to him as well for
Absolutely.
allowing you this space. I mean, Tiffany, you brought so much value to the
To God
topic,
be the glory.
to the live. I appreciate you. Truly, I do. Yeah, thank you. This was amazing, and I'm looking forward to. I found out it was a chair lady or a older lady out in, not that older, but she's older, out in Indiana. I saw her at a youth conference. She was just like, I've been watching, and I'm loving what I'm like, oh, okay, right. So these people who are not commenting, are not liking, or they're just watching, I really
Yes,
pray that this live helps them or helps whoever it needs to help, because that's all we're doing it for, is for God to get the glory and to
that's
heal and deliver and to set His people free. So I appreciate you again, Tiffany, so, so, so much. Thank you
thank
again.
you for this invitation. I do not take this lightly.
Listen, we gotta go back and look at the schedules. And
Oh
see
yes. You know where to find me. Call me, beat me if you want to reach me.
Come on, Kim Possible! Stop it! Yes! Oh my gosh! Okay, sorry, fangirl a little bit, because that's right there. They don't understand. Generations now don't understand.
They don't.
We had the best childhood. I'm
We
telling
did.
you. Yeah. But thank you again. Honestly, to God be the glory, guys. I really do appreciate you all for watching us. I thank you all for the comments that you all have shared. I thank you all for sticking with me and sticking it out while I was in school. This is finals week, y'all. So pray my strength in the Lord. It has been a doozy. But to God be the glory. I pray to finish on top. Thank you again, Tiffany, so, so much. I pray that God's blessings are over you and continue to increase, because you are His and because you are giving back to His people and because you've been on this live. I pray exceeding blessings for you. So thank you again so, so much. Y'all, you already know how we doing it.
Oh yes.
All right. See you all later.
Bye.